Time being 7 o'clock, I call the Hastings City Council meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, and let the roll reflect. We have a full quorum tonight, and all council members are present. Tonight we will be doing a proclamation for the Veterans of Foreign Wars Buddy Poppy Month. And this, we will start with Council Member House.
Thank you, Your Honor. Whereas at the end of World War I, the Veterans of Foreign Wars adopted the poppy as a symbol of freedom and the blood sacrificed by troops in war times, and
whereas poppies are worn and displayed as a symbolic tribute to our fallen and the future of living veterans and service members, and
whereas the annual distribution of buddy poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States has been officially recognized and endorsed by governmental leaders since 1922, and
whereas the buddy poppy was registered with the United States Patent Office in February 1924. A certificate was issued on May 20th, 1924, granting the VFW organization all trademark rights in the name of Buddy under the classification of artificial flowers, and
whereas the Buddy Poppy was adopted as the official memorial flower of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States, as it remains today, and
Whereas the Buddy Poppy program provides financial assistance in maintaining state and national veterans rehabilitation and service programs, and particularly supports the VFW National Home, and
whereas the basic purpose of the annual distribution of buddy poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Wars is eloquently reflected in the desire to honor the dead by helping the living.
Now therefore, be it resolved that I, the mayor of the city of Hastings, do hereby urge the citizens of this community to recognize the merits of this cause by contributing generously to its support through your donation for Buddy Poppy on the day set for distribution of these symbol of appreciation of the sacrifice of our honored dead. Further, I urge all patriotic citizens to wear a Buddy Poppy as mute evidence of our gratitude to the men and women of this country who have risked their lives in defense of the freedom which we continue to enjoy as American citizens. In witness, where I hereby send my hand and sign this proclamation on this 6th day of May 2024. We do thank all of our veterans for their services. Council, are there any corrections to the minutes of the April 17th meeting? Okay, now we will hear comments from the audience. If there is anyone who wishes to speak to the council at this time, you may step forward to the podium. Please state your name and address, and we allow up to about 3 minutes of comments. You may.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Tucker. I'm a pediatrician. I live in Hastings. I just want to start by thanking all of you for your service and all that you're doing for all of us and all of our children. This is new for me, but I'm here tonight in regard to the water situation that I know all of us care about. My understanding is that the allowable levels of is that okay? The allowable levels for PFAS is over the allowable levels in the city. This can cause potentially risk for cancer, developmental delays, immune issues, and endocrine disruption. I just want to share with you an article that really caught my attention. I had pursued an additional master's in public health at the University of Minnesota in the past, partway. And for the first time, we didn't get taught about this in medical school, but I learned about a study called Body Burden, the Pollution in Newborns. They tested 10 newborns across the country for industrial chemicals that are not natural to the human body. And they found well over 200 chemicals in each of 10 babies in different locations across our country. These are chemicals that are not natural to the human body, most of which were carcinogens, endocrine disruptors, or neuroendocrine disruptors. And we all know that we live in a bit of a Bermuda Triangle regarding some industries. And we know that there's been some chemical issues in connection with 3M recently. I would really love to encourage, in the strongest of loving ways, that we find ways to provide water to every citizen in Hastings. There's no safe level of PFOA or PFAS. And we're playing Russian roulette if we don't provide water, safe water, for every child and every one of us. Our children are especially vulnerable. Our children, just think about a mother that's pregnant right now. Do we really want to take a risk for the child that she's carrying right now? Do we really want to take a risk for the children that are born, that are in their parents' arms right now, being fed formula from our taps? I sure don't. And, I really want to just, in the highest of most lovingly and most strong ways, would love to be an advocate and joining arm in arm with all of you in protecting our children together. So, in pediatrics, lots of times we don't know how we're going to get something done. We just know we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do for our children to protect them. I'd love to invite and empower us to just find a way. Let's find the money, let's find a way, let's figure it out, and let's make sure everybody's protected. I don't want to see our babies being bathed in this water. I don't want to see them drinking it. I don't want to see our children and our parents eating food that's being prepared with it, or brushing our teeth with it, or cleaning our dishes with it. So this is something we can make a very big difference with while we're figuring out the rest, The other issue is I'd love to encourage, and I'm sorry that I don't have the information with me now, but I will share some follow-up links, one of which includes something called EWG, the Environmental Work Group, and they're a strong citizen advocate. And they have a tap water database that shows that there are additional contaminants in our water system beyond PFOAs and PFAS. And I would love to encourage that we together take a look at those additional contaminants, and whatever solutions are found, I'd really love to encourage that every single one of them is included in the plan. Sometimes even the levels that are being recommended and the interventions, sometimes they're not enough. And right now, I believe that the current recommendations allowing people to not, of suggesting it's okay to drink the water, it's up to you, I don't believe that those are safe enough recommendations. And would love to join together with all of you in helping to assure the thriving of our children and all of us, every single one of us, now and for generations to come. So thank you for all you are already doing. And I'm happy to be a resource and welcome connecting on this or any other topic. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone on Zoom wishing to speak?
Okay.
Oh, Councilmember Liefeld.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. First, Dr. Tucker, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know this is out of your comfort zone, but I also know it's something you're really passionate about. I've had time to talk to many of my colleagues here about our conversation, and we'll be having more conversations. I want to remind people, and the mayor's going to remind us at the end of the meeting, but since people are listening and just heard you speak, I want to remind people about a information meeting this Thursday night. The city is hosting a PFAS information meeting with presentations and a question and answer session by the Minnesota Department of Health, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and the City of Hastings. It'll be held this Thursday, May 9th at 6 p.m. in the Hastings High School Auditorium. Again, the mayor will talk about it later, but perfect opportunity to bring it up since it's something that you just talked about. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come and share your passion with us, and it's definitely something it's on all of our radar. So thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Councilmember Lightfoot. Council members, are there any items to be considered? Okay, I would accept a motion for the consent agenda. Councilmember Pemble and Councilmember Lightfoot. Any discussion, council? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. Thank you, and that passes. For this item tonight, the H Tobacco Special Use Permit for cannabis, we will have a public hearing, and then we will have a resolution. And with us tonight, we have the Community Development Director, John Hinsman, and he will give us an update. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. As the mayor pointed out, 2 steps to tonight's action, the public hearing as well as the consideration of the special use permit itself. I will provide a little bit of background information as to how we got to where we are today. As you know, the City Council adopted new regulations pertaining to the sale of cannabis last year. This is one of the first applications to come out of the gate with it, and there's a few missteps that we had with this one coming out of the gate. One is that when we have a license requirement for cannabis, but we also have a zoning action for cannabis sales as well. So the council did consider the license requirement at their first meeting in April. It did approve that, but they failed to take action on the special use permit. So that was really at staff's error on that one, and we've made provisions so that we don't have that happen in the future. So that's the reason why we have this before you tonight as a public hearing, as opposed to having after you've taken action on the license requirement. So the action we've got before us tonight is a cannabis license for H Tobacco. I'm going to show my screen here. H Tobacco is located at 1310 Vermilion Street in this shopping center located right here at the end cap, just north of 14th Street here. They've been in operation there for about a year or two. And the cannabis sale that we have for the special use permit is very similar to the requirements that we have under the licensing requirement. There's a background investigation, there's a check of safety and security by the police chief, all of which have taken place on this. The Planning Commission did consider this application at their last meeting, did recommend approval of this on a 5-0 vote. We did not have anyone speak for or against it during the public hearing. We did have a mailing go out to all residents within 350 feet of this property, and we have not had any comments nor questions that have come up pertaining to this. There was one item of discussion at the Planning Commission meeting, and that was pertaining to the signage within the building itself. The applicant failed to get a sign permit to put the signage up. So we did put a condition on the special use permit that prior to the sale and the execution of the special use permit, he would need to secure that sign permit. Other than that, I think everything else is pretty straightforward. So I can stand for any questions right now, or you may open the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Council, I'll open the public hearing first, and then we will have a discussion. This time I will, open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak to council on this issue? Anyone on Zoom? And no one on Zoom. One more time, anyone wish to speak to the council at this time? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, open discussion for council. Councilmember Lightfoot?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion granting a special use permit for the retail sale of cannabis products at 1310 Vermilion Street for Hamzin Simran, H Tobacco.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Lightfoot, and a second by Councilmember Fox. Discussion, council? Okay, all those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. All right, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we will do an authorization signature for the services agreement for Codametrics zoning code revision. John, you may continue.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. So we often use the zoning code, and the zoning code that we have right now has been around for 28 years, and you can imagine the changes that have happened in best practices and development that have occurred during that time period. It is in need of a rewrite and a revision. And so what we're asking for you tonight is to consider a contract with Codametrics to prepare a revision to the zoning code itself. The revision itself is likely to be, frankly, a rewrite of the code. We're going to have them delve deep into every aspect that we have within there. Codametrics has a wide background of doing codes throughout the country, codes that are similar to what we have in Hastings as far as the development of historic development and also the new development that we have. So we've been very impressed with what we've seen in the background. How we got to this point is we put out a request for proposal, got 6 responses back from that, ended up interviewing 4 firms, and Codametrics was the unanimous choice of those firms. So what happens from here is upon the execution of the contract, we will enter into an agreement with Codametrics. It's about a 1-year project altogether. It's going to involve review of zoning ordinances by city staff, by the Planning Commission, and ultimately by the public as well. Their proposal contemplates a few touch points for the public within this so that the public can see the plan online, be able to comment and review on it, and have open houses pertaining to the plan itself. So they've laid out a very good strategy for tackling the plan, but it's about a 1-year project altogether. So this will be a good chunk of time for us in the Planning Commission as we move forward. The cost of this is $65,000. It's a not to exceed bid. That's the amount of money that we had budgeted within the budget itself. So looking for action on the contract. If you have any questions, I can stand for it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Council. Councilmember Fox?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, John, for that background. One thing I would like to highlight is that we haven't updated this since 1996. So I think it is well worth our time and cost to update our zoning code. One of my questions earlier today was how would this affect the current zones and how do we actually like roll something like this out? And I just wanted to highlight another thing you said, that we will have stakeholder engagement and public hearings and make sure that people are within code, and we're going to protect our residents, our businesses, and our city by having a really strong code in the next iteration of it. So I appreciate your background, Dan. Thank you for answering my questions about it this morning. I'm happy to make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. Councilmember Layfield?
I will hold off on a second. I do have a question.
Okay. Do we have a second? Councilmember House will second. Open discussion for council.
Thank you. And because some really smart individual told me a little while ago there's no such thing as a dumb question, I'm going to use that to my advantage. So we just had a really long meeting, a workshop for the council, talking about our budget, and our number 1 priority in the city right now is the PFAS and PFOAs, and how we're going to treat that and the extreme price tag that's going to come with doing that, and we're going to come up with this money. That being said, is this something that needs to happen right now? It's $65,000, seems like a drop in a bucket on a $68 million project. It has been budgeted. However, is that something, it's still an expense, right? Even though it's been budgeted. And I don't know the answer, so I guess it's a question. I understand 28 years is a long time. It needs to be updated, and I know we've come a long way in updating wording and codes, and excellent job on the part of our city staff. That needs to be done. I guess my question would be, could this stand to be put on a back burner, and how would that affect the money that's already been budgeted? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. Dan?
My answer is more anecdotal than specific, but in my 4.5 years here, I think we've been involved in 3 land use lawsuits. So I would really like to make sure, although I think we've got a good code, I think it would be good to make sure that it's meeting contemporary expectations.
Thank you, Dan.
Excellent sort of an answer. How would that affect, if it were voted down and we were to say no to this, does that $65,000 that's currently earmarked in the budget become available within the budget for us to utilize towards the infrastructure required for PFAS? No such thing as a stupid question, Dan.
It would not automatically transfer to that. I also, not prepared to answer at the moment, but would certainly want to talk with our finance manager about sort of crossing between the general operations side of the budget versus the water utility side. They really are budgeted separately. This certainly would not automatically transfer, and I really want to talk through some of the implications of making it transfer.
Thank you, Dan. That being said, since we've got a motion and a second on the floor, if we were to vote on this right now and were to vote it nay, if we were to vote it down, what is the process for bringing this back up after that information is brought to us? Did that question make sense?
Which information brought to you?
So you're going to find out, my question is, if this turns into $65,000 that you get to use, not you specifically, but that your department uses for some other item, well then, let's do this. If that $65,000 could be budgeted and used elsewhere in regards to PFAS, that's my question. If we voted no right now, can we find out whether or not this money could be allocated towards that? If so, or if not, could we turn around and re-vote on this at an upcoming meeting and not have to start anything over?
I'm not familiar with the specific terms of this proposal or agreement, so I would defer to Community Development Director John Hinsman, but a question of how good is that quote for? Can we hold it for another 2 weeks, or does it expire? The other would be if it could be held, and if council was so inclined, I would recommend that you either table or just not act rather than voting against it. But if there's some question about the budgeting technicalities between the general fund and the utility fund, we could certainly have that for our meeting on the 20th. It would not be a long delay.
So I think a question's been posed to you, sir. This particular budget item that we've received a bid or such have you, how long is that good for, right? Do we have 2 weeks to look at this? And then, just so people know, this was an hour-and-a-half long discussion where we talked about things we can do within the city to make fiscally smart decisions and making sure that we're making our budget go as far as it can. I don't know that that's the answer here, John, saying no to this. Do I think this has to happen? Yes, I do. My question is right now the best timing for it under the circumstances?
Sure. To answer your question, council member, about how long the bid would be valid for, I don't have that answer in front of me. I would imagine that 2 weeks is not going to be fatal on this one.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councilmember
John.
Liefeld. Thank you, John. Councilmember Liefeld. I'm sorry, Councilmember Fox.
We are cousins, so that's okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so just to be really clear, our hour-and-a-half meeting was about reviewing our strategic plan and where we actually want to place our staff's energy in the next few years, and what the council's direction was. We ended up talking a lot about budget because we have a big budget item ahead of us with PFAS. And one thing that very much concerns me is that if we take, like, I think you said, Councilmember Liefeld, a drop in the bucket, right, 65,000, which is a lot of money, but it's relative to a big bill that could put a dent in a big bill. I'm worried about putting the function of the city on the back burner. I don't want something that we have very little control over to take over our city. We have to have a functioning city that provides resources, provides infrastructure, provides clean water, and that is the function of our city, right? We need to pay for things. So I'm afraid that if we set the precedent that a bill like $65,000 for an RFP for something that we haven't touched since '96, where best practices get lost, that will be consequential to the function of what we do here. So I stand by my motion and will be voting yes in favor of this RFP. My one question for you, John, hypothetically, this is not passed by a simple majority, which is what we need for this action. Is this something we could talk about tomorrow at Hedra to pay for?
Council member, I'd leave that up to your discretion. If the Hedger believes that this would be an item to fund, I will remind the council that during the budget discussions we had for 23 and 24, we did allocate funding for the zoning ordinance. Mm-hmm. It was not done in 23. Carried that money over to 24, added an additional $15,000 in that budget to do this. So the council has established this as a priority over the last 2 budget cycles.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. Councilmember Verichoff.
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with actually both of my colleagues up on the dais here. I think that Councilmember Liefeld and Councilmember Fox are both making great points. My question for Dan or for John would be, it's kind of along Councilmember Liefeld's same way of thinking, is that if we look at this as a possibility of perhaps saving $65,000, to your point, could the reverse actually be true? So in other words, if we don't do this, is there, to Councilmember Fox's position, are we costing ourselves money at some point? Are we leaving money on the table in terms of, I don't know, zone violations or other pots of revenue or income that we could be generating in that way? In other words, are we robbing Peter a little bit to pay Paul?
Councilmember, I might be able to suppose a few things related to that. I mean, one of the things we're going to be looking at here is the zoning districts that we have. And a topic of conversation regionally over the spring has been looking at housing and providing affordable housing and more housing opportunities. The zoning code is a tool in which one can do that. So I think part of the discussion we're going to have is whether there's more opportunities to create more housing that's not there right now. More housing within the city brings in more residents, increases the tax base. So I'm hoping that has a positive effect on that. I know right now with the zoning districts that we have for residential, especially with the single-family districts, frankly, the lot size minimums that we have right now are not consistent with the market. So we're requiring something of our zoning code that the market is not serving right now, and that could be a lost opportunity for us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilmember Verichoff. Thank you, John. I'll just make a statement. You know, we are watching our dollars. We have to. That's our duties and due diligence. However, we want our community to grow, and we want to have updated zoning and ordinances, and I think staff has worked very hard in bringing us into this time of era, which many things have not been looked at for years, as John has stated, as other things have not been updated for a long time. Personally, I would like to continue to see this process go through for the betterment of our developments and futuristically for our businesses and many other things that want to come in. Because it has been passed on for 2 budgets now, I think that's important. We can't keep kicking the can down the road, as we say. And I know, I understand where you're coming from, Councilmember Liefeld, and we are being very cautious as our spending, but we also can't go backwards in something like I think this is important. My thought. Councilmember Liefeld.
One final question for you, John, since I think the word you used, you could provide some sort ofs or something, was when answering Councilmember Fairchild's question. So can you tell us in 2023 and so far in 2024, how many new rooftops were added into the city of Hastings?
Yeah, Councilmember, there was over 200 in each year in 2022 and 23.
So
So
no-
there was over 200 each year, correct.
So in the last year, we added over 200 rooftops without having spent this $65,000 to have this study. Just wanted to point that out. I am going to vote no. I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. Councilmember Pemble.
I understand, very well, we had an hour and a half plus discussion and basically revolved around income and costs. But when you say it's been 28 years, 28 years, there are some people that are on the dais here that aren't 28 years of age. And you look at that and say, this has to be done. Yes, I wholeheartedly understand the need to say, okay, is this something that we could put off? Yes, but in the other hand, are there missteps or advantages that we didn't take care of? Because it's like you said, the size of our lot size isn't part of what the current market is looking for. And, if we're not in place, we maybe are losing that opportunity. We could be looking at better than 200 rooftops if we were in the right set. And it's a maintenance thing in my place. It's like, okay, 28 years, it shouldn't go by 28 years. There's every few years, things need to be updated. It's just like getting your car fixed or buying a new one or buying a house or whatever. But I will vote yes for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pemble and Councilmember House.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dan, I do have one question for, well, kind of question. Something that you had mentioned that's a concern of mine now is that you had said that there were 3 lawsuits. Would revamping this code help prevent that? Or would not approving this further the possibility of more issues?
Although it's speculative, I think that having an up-to-date code would reduce the likelihood of lawsuits, partly just a matter of avoiding some ambiguous or undefined language. But I think that it would reduce that likelihood.
Thank you. Lawsuits cost money as well, so that's kind of my thought as well on that.
Thank you, Councilmember House. Any other discussion? There is a first and a second. Okay, all those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay.
Nay.
And that motion prevails. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Tonight, we have a trail easement vacation on the Smead property, and we will have a public hearing and a resolution, and we will have an introduction by our Parks and Recs Development, or Director, Chris Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Welcome.
I like Parks Development. We can do that too.
That was on my mind from earlier.
I like it. I like it. Yes, what we have tonight is we're vacating a trail easement we've had for nearly 20 years that runs through the Smead's parking lot, or the north side of Smead's parking lot. They were gracious enough years ago to allow that easement for that trail. That portion of the trail is being taken over by Dakota County as part of their regional trail. So Dakota County has worked through the process to clean up and get their own easement through that property. And in fact, the work on the trail has been done there already, so they've had permission working directly with Smead. So this is cleaning up, getting rid of the city's easement and allowing Dakota County to have their own.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Any questions, Councilmember Fox?
Sorry, should we open the public hearing? I'll ask my question. This is kind of a tangent, but do you know how that's going? I'm so excited about this trail.
The whole project?
Just until approximately Goodhue County.
So this project is going to end at Highway 46 at the Highway 46 Vermilion Linear Park. And to get through all my parks there, is where this trail will terminate for now. They have plans in the future, Dakota County has plans in the future to take this trail all the way to Farmington, and then perhaps another trail down Highway 54 as well. But that would be a separate trail.
Okay. Okay. And completion around?
For this project, it'll be done later this summer. They're waiting on a bridge that will be in Vermilion Linear Park that's supposed to be delivered, I'm going to say mid-June, but that can always turn into mid-July with those sorts of items.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. All right, at this time, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on the public hearing for the easement? Nothing on Zoom. No one in the audience wishing to speak. I will close the public hearing. Councilmember Liefeld, you had a question.
Just to confirm, so it's the trail we already own, and they're just, like we did down in, on the Mississippi River there, the county's just taking over. We're not adding a new trail, we're not doing anything. They're just going to take over the maintenance and such. And then.
Ultimately, yes.
And they're going to maintain now to the 61, and then the trail that we have that goes west from there is still maintained by the city. 61, that trail continues underneath the bridge, goes behind Applebee's through Bolken, down the
Vermilion Linear
River.
Park and Highway 46 is the termination of this trail segment.
Okay.
But yes, the Dakota County will jurisdictionally own the pavement and 2 feet on either side of the pavement from virtually for about 6 or 7 miles of our 10-mile loop. So the Mississippi River Regional Greenway and the Vermilion River Regional Greenway.
Well, then I would like to make a motion to approve the vacating the trail easement as indicated in our handout.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. Councilmember Verichoff, any discussion, council? Okay, all those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely.
Now, under Parks and Recreation, we will have a second reading to adopt the ordinance for the Chapter 94 Parks and Recreation.
Well, thank you again. Yes, this is a second reading and adoption, a repeal and replace of Ordinance 94, which is a lot of things Parks and Recreation. I won't say all things, but a lot of things Parks and Recreation. Is cleaning up some old, cobbled together, edited, revised over the years ordinance. It also ties this ordinance in sync with a few of our other ordinances. Highlights of this are park hours. We have a standard curfew, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. We have other parks that council has taken action on that extend those hours to 11 p.m. We have a couple of permits with the Mississippi River Boat Dock and the Mississippi River Public Water Access that require different things. So getting all of those parts and pieces in there, it makes our leash law in the parks consistent with the leash law in our other ordinances. And it excludes pets from being on the athletic fields themselves at Vets Park, which is a big one as well. It also deals with alcohol in the parks and tobacco in the parks and vaping in the parks as well. So lots of good stuff, really clear and concise. Had a lot of help from Ms. Corey Land as well, too. So
Thank
can
you,
stand
Chris.
for any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions, council? Okay, this is the second reading. All right. I'll accept a motion. Councilmember Pemble and a second by Councilmember Lawrence. Discussion, council? All those in, Councilmember Liefeld?
Quick clarification question for you, Chris.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned alcohol in the parks, so I went to double check it, and it just is referring to, so the law isn't changing within the parks, it just is referring to after hours. So,
Had a little bit of inconsistency in parks and/or special events. There's been new beverages now that have been created. Think your seltzer that's actually made out of vodka and sparkling water. Under our old ordinance, that would not have been allowed because it's intoxicating liquor and not intoxicating malt liquor, which is beer. Do we really want to police and patrol if you have a Mike's Hard Lemonade or a Coors Light in your hand? It just cleans that sort of stuff up. And if people choose to go and get intoxicated and inebriated in a park, they're violating the other ordinances anyways, and the police can take care of that. But still no glass.
Thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Tonight, under administration, as we've stated in the past, we will have a PFAS update, the first council meeting of the month, and we will have a update from Dan Waticha.
Thank you. First on my list of updates is that there is a public information meeting coming up on Thursday, the 9th, 6 p.m. at Hastings High School Auditorium. Certainly very much encourage people to attend in person. I think that you get a better just understanding and feel and easier opportunity to ask questions directly, or even speak with your neighbor next to you in the auditorium. But do recognize that it also is going to be live streamed on HCTV if that meets other people's convenience. Other updates. At this point, we remain optimistic about potential funding or partial funding through the state's capital budget. As we know, the capital budget, the state bonding bill, is typically the last or one of the last things that the legislature does. So figure a couple more weeks before that actually gets voted. I do suppose that in between now and then, we might get better indications if we're in or out, but at this point, it's still wait patiently, and I will be the optimist. Another update, a couple of weeks ago, last week maybe, 2 weeks ago, we submitted requests for potential federal funding, submitted those requests to Senators Klobuchar and Smith, as well as Representative Craig. In that case, we requested $10.3 million, which is half of the first phase of the project, and we indicated that expect us to come back for future phases. But $10 million is more than is typically funded through community project funding or congressionally directed spending. This decision could be any time between now and October. So wait patiently on that, but we're certainly seeking funding. Other funding we have submitted for and are submitting for the state's Drinking Water Revolving Fund Project Priority List, the PPL. We resubmitted that project last week. Resubmitted because we were on there last year, but found out months later that there were errors in the scoring. We do believe that correcting those errors will rank us at or at least near the top of the list, which does help position us for funding. I think it also helps us just in communicating the importance of the project when we talk to other funding sources about we're near the top of a statewide list. That, although we might get indications of a score in the next month or so, the ranking among other projects statewide would not be till fall, but still an important step. Paired with that is the intended use plan. So it's sort of a two-step process, the project priority list and then the IUP. That IUP application is due in early June, and Public Works Department has been preparing to submit that application. Essentially, it's a matter of not just saying, here's a project, but here's a project that is ready to go. I will say that the Drinking Water Revolving Fund is not our preferred funding source, but it is a possibility. It also is part of our due diligence and indicating that we're seeking out funding when we talk to legislators and others, that we're doing our part at looking for how to do this. It also does have a emerging contaminants grant associated with it, which is $3 million, a little bit more than a drop in the bucket, I heard the term earlier, but certainly does not get the project done. It is possible, although it'd be applied individually, that each of our three phases might get such a grant. So potentially up to $9 million, which certainly is helpful. Anyways, those applications, as well as others, have been ongoing. The other piece I think needs to be noted, and part of our discussion earlier this evening, is coincidentally, Monday next week, the Finance Committee is meeting to begin talking about the 2025 budget. And just the reality is going to have to be some, at least initial discussion about potential, significant potential water rate increases. Certainly no decisions there yet, and a lot of pieces that hopefully might be falling into place, but we do need to prepare for that certain possibility. Couple other updates. The Pollution Control Agency continues to do additional, or they're drilling, I think, 6 additional new sampling wells as part of the Phase 2 environmental site assessment, which is trying to narrow down or essentially rule out potential sources of the contamination, so that if you sort of narrow the list, at some point you've got a source identified. So it's important to continue that environmental work, but it's going to take time, but certainly pursuing that. The other piece, you might remember back last month I indicated that the PCA had requested 3M Company to do some investigation of its discharge specific in the Hastings area. Those results, or at least the preliminary results, we got back in mid-April, early mid-April. Those really have been a conversation between 3M and the PCA, but some of that was shared with us. I think the important piece there is it's a step. It confirmed the presence of PFOA and PFOS, similar to the sampling that we had done previously, and the presence of HQ115 in one of our wells. We sampled it, saw it once. It's nice to at least get it confirmed that it was not a false positive, and helps to keep those conversations ongoing. I do believe that the 3M has proposed, and the PCA has agreed that some additional chemical evaluation of the PFOA is warranted at this point, and they're expecting to submit a work plan for that additional investigation in mid-May. So, yes, we saw a step that confirmed some earlier findings, and that basically just sets us up for the next step for some additional study. So a lot of it's ongoing. It might feel slow, except it's extremely important. I think the immediate piece right now for us or anybody out there in the public is that meeting on Thursday the 9th to hear directly from the Department of Health, the Pollution Control Agency, the city staff also, about the contaminants in our water, what it means, and also there will be significant question and answer format to that presentation. That I can take any questions now. We'll see you Thursday.
Thank you, Dan. Council, any questions? All right. Dan, you may continue now with the accounting software changeover. You'll have an overview and then a resolution for a temporary waiver or utility late fees.
Yeah, for certainly the last year and a half in earnest, but this was actually being discussed before I started here a few years ago. But we are switching over to a new accounting software vendor, BS&A, and looking forward to the abilities and user-friendliness of that system, as well as some security improvements to it. But we're coming up on sort of D-Day, so to speak. It's almost time, I think it's next week, to migrate and validate the data from the old system to the new one. But although it seems to be in the background, it's going to have some pieces that are a bit recognized here in public and maybe even frustrating. We will be unable to accept electronic payments between the 8th and the 12th. Even if somebody comes in and pays with a check their utility bill, we're going to have to give them a receipt and put it in a drawer, but we won't even be able to process it until after this transition period, so after the 12th. If somebody is on an auto payment system, because it's a new system and has new security features, they will need to re-register their account and banking information in order to make auto payments in the new system. We can't do that for them. And behind that is the reason for the recommendation on the resolution in a moment here that although people will get a notice, I think invariably somebody's going to miss a notice, and rather than somebody who's trying to make timely payments or on the auto pay system, rather than that getting stuck with a 10% penalty, recommend that the city put in a temporary waiver for the next 3 months that in those situations, the late fee would be waived. Certainly encourage them, get registered. Don't test the waiver, but certainly want to work with and understand the impact on people. Other piece, I think, informational, is with this new system, the automatic, well, not just automatic payments, but any electronic payments will be strictly through the software vendor and not handled by the city. So if you remember back the first of the year, the city council approved for utility bills, but also for other transactions throughout the city, putting or charging a convenience fee to cover the credit card expenses. Under the new system, that'll be handled directly by BS&A and not the city. Doesn't take any change for us, but should be aware that that fee, about in the same ballpark, 2.95% plus 50 cents per transaction, will be directly between the customer and BS&A. But the part that'll be new is if somebody's making an ACH payment, that will now have a fee which is handled by BS&A, not through us. So recognize back just a couple months ago, we said, here's a new credit card fee, and we had a number of people say, I don't want to pay the fee, so they switched over their auto pay from their credit card to their checking account. Going forward, still encourage people to be on auto pay, but there will be that transaction convenience fee with the ACH transactions through BS&A. So all the accounting software is in the background, but I think we will see places that people notice it. I think in the long run, it's certainly a better system to work with. I think that the fees are reasonable. I think the recommendation to do a temporary waiver of late fees during this transition certainly is warranted. But with that, I can take any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Councilmember Liefeld?
Thanks, Dan. Looking back at December 18th, where we did the second reading of Chapter 34 fees, we specifically, and you addressed it, so thank you, that we had discussion regarding the 2.95% for credit card use. We did not discuss ACH. I would be curious to know that $3, is that a BSA fee? Because I know generally.
Both of these fees, the credit card at 2.95 plus 50 cents and the ACH fee of $3 per transaction up to 1,000 and higher amounts at higher increments, are strictly with BSNA and do not involve the city and do not need a change in our fee schedule. It's strictly between the BSNA and the customer.
So the credit card fee, we discussed, it was costing the city money to process those. We know that, right? And we're seeing that with a lot of businesses around. If you use a card, you pay extra. We all had a big conversation. I would question, and maybe it's not an issue for people, but the ACH fee, so we made the decision to add that 2.95% because it was costing the city money to process that. Now, if BSA is doing this, it's costing them, they're getting their 2.95% plus this 50 cents, and they're getting a $3 fee for ACH. I'd be curious, because I know banks are different, but generally speaking, banks do not charge a business for an incoming ACH. So if that's a fee that they're making money on, I'm just curious, they're a business, they probably have fees, right? But that wasn't in our original discussion, so I just want to.
Our original, just to note, our original discussion was fees collected by the city. In this case, it's separate and is not, neither one is a fee collected by the city. I recognize that it's right next to us because it's with the utility payment, but the credit card fees that we enacted at the first of the year, which was 3%, not 2.95, was strictly for fees that the city was collecting their credit card payment. In this case, we're no longer the middle person. We're taken out of the equation, so this is just between the customer and the vendor.
Got it. So it's a convenience fee that they're paying to BSA to have an ACH payment. Okay. I just wanted noted that is, we did not discuss the convenience fees or the 50 cents fee, and we did discuss a 3.7, because the credit card transaction fees paid by the city were 3.7%. So, thank you, Jan. I appreciate your explaining that.
Thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. Councilmember Verichov?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Liefeld, for those comments. So I have a couple of thoughts on this. Number one, I commend the city and city staff and Dan, of course, for thinking through making sure there's a temporary waiver so that if folks do have questions about this, that they have a little bit of wiggle room. I think that's a really, really good and smart idea, and I'm really proud of staff that is implementing that. I myself, of course, pay my water bill through online means. And when I went online to set this up, I wasn't quite sure what to do. And so that begs my next question, that if somebody that's sitting up here isn't quite sure what to do, there might be lots of people watching that necessarily aren't sure what to do. And while I think this was a great explanation and I appreciate all the information here, if you go to log in next week and you're not sure exactly how you should handle that, Dan, what should somebody do? Should they call utilities? Should they call you? Should they call Councilmember Liefeld?
I will be taking next week off. No, they should call either the finance or the utility billing department. I believe that number, I'd have to look at the fine print at the bottom, but that number should be on their billing statements. It's also on the city website.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. And I would just like it to be noted that Councilmember Liefeld, I appreciate all of these different instances that you bring up in terms of keeping this governing body thinking about different ways that we can save money and resources for the people we serve. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Verichov. Councilmember Fox?
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, so I'm going to just break it down real quick. we have a 20-day billing cycle from when bills go out to when they're due. And I have a neighbor who does not appreciate that. So I am saying that out loud because I want to represent their needs. And we as a council are pushing forward a quarterly billing, 3 different quarterly bill cycle. It's all on the website. We have the ability to auto pay. There are a lot of resources, so you don't have to worry about your payment being late, even if you don't want to pay an ACH fee or a convenience fee or anything like that. We have a mailbox outside in our little driveway that you can slip your little mail in there. You don't even have to use the USPS. So I did want to just represent my neighbor and friends' concerns about the 20-day billing cycle, not a 30-day billing cycle. That's something that we continue to talk about. I do want to ask, though, and again, to the public listening, if you are on auto pay, we're hopefully going to support you not getting a late payment for this next bill. However, my question is that then it would be due August 20th, 2024, which is also, would anybody ever have to pay double is my question. Like, would anybody ever miss a bill and then need to double up on their next bill? I'm just making sure that we don't have that happening.
The proposal to waive the late fee assumes that they're paying the bill, just late. If they chose to ignore the bill, it will come back the next cycle.
Then you get a 10% late fee after the 20th of the month. Okay, I just wanted to ask the question for our listening audience. If you are on auto pay, please come back and register for auto pay in the future. That's the last thing I want to say.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. Councilmember
Can I
Liefeld?
piggyback to that, Councilmember Fox? So, just so people listening, auto ACH payments are set up through the merchant. So, what's the name of the company we're switching? BSA? So your ACH payment is set up at BSA by giving them your account and routing number, not by going to your bank and setting up an ACH payment. ACH payment is giving a merchant the authority to take money from you, not the authority for you to give them money, okay? So, for all the people out there who have ACH payment set up, don't go to your bank, call BSA. And did that letter go out in this month's? I apologize, I have not opened my bill yet for this month, but did a letter of explanation go out in this month's bill? I will go home and read it. Thank you. But it is an entire process with, people have this happen with association payments and that sort of thing. So when it changes, and you have to reapply through BSA. Thank you. I'm done now.
Councilmember Liefeld? Councilmember House?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution for temporary waiver of utility late fees.
Thank you, Councilmember House. And a second by Councilmember Liefeld. New discussion. All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Thank you, Dan. Any announcements, council? Okay. I have a few. May is National Building Safety Month and National Historic Preservation Month. This week is Municipal Clerk Appreciation Week, and next week is National Police Week. Please join me in a great and heartfelt thank you to all the employees in these departments for their service in our community. The Arts and Culture Commission hosts an annual Creative Convergence on Thursday, May 9th. All arts and culture organizations and individuals are invited to attend to network. Please join us. Thursday, 6 p.m., May 9th, Hastings High School Auditorium for a presentation on PFAS, representations from the Minnesota Department of Health, Minnesota Pollution Agency will be there for questions and answers. Saturday, May 11th, we have a mattress and box spring drop-off and document shredding event. Discounted price for mattress and box spring recycling, and shredding is free. Info is at the city website. Tuesday, May 14th is Police Week. Open house, and it is all invited for this free event. The Roadside Courts grand reopening on Saturday, May 18th is a ribbon cutting and refreshments and drawing, open play, challenging courts, and clinics for the Hastings Pickleball Association. Will facilitate lessons as well. So we all love our pickleball courts, and they're being used a ton. Filing for municipal office openings May 21st through June 4th. City Council will hold an optional candidate information session on Tuesday, May 21st. Meetings coming ahead. Tuesday, May 7th, 6 p.m., we have a HEDRA meeting. Wednesday, May 8th, 6 p.m., there's an Arts and Culture Commission. Thursday, May 9th, 6 p.m. is a City Council special meeting, and that is the PFAS meeting. Monday, May 13th, 7 p.m., Finance Committee, 7 p.m., Planning Commission. Wednesday, May 15th, 6 p.m., Parks and Recreation Commission. Thursday, May 16th, 6:30, Public Safety Advisory Commission. Monday, May 20th, 5:30, City Council. We will have a workshop with the school board, a joint school board meeting with school and city. 7 p.m., we have a council meeting. At this time, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
I have something.
Excuse me, Councilmember Liefeld.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to also mention that May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. I think this is really important that we mention this. It talks about addressing the challenges faced by millions of Americans living with mental health conditions. Throughout the month, the dedication is to eradicating the stigma, extending support, fostering public education, and advocating for policies that prioritize the well-being of individuals and families affected by mental illness. It is real, there is help, and never be ashamed to ask for that. So
Thank you,
that is it.
Councilmember
Thank you,
Liefeld.
Honor.
A motion to adjourn by Councilmember Pemble and Councilmember Lawrence. No discussion. All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. We are adjourned.